anything there?
No, he certainly didn't, Paul. The tires looked good, and he got going again. It looked like maybe he had just driven in too deep, maybe locked up his brakes for a moment, because right there, he looks fine.
An indication of tire wear, though.
No, tire wear shouldn't be bad. It's not going to be real good, but most of the laps have been yellow. He really shouldn't have a tire problem yet.
Let's go to Jack Arute.
Paul, we just checked with Chuck Sprague, who calls the shots. He talked to Emerson Fittipaldi, and all Emo said is he just missed the corner.
And Fittipaldi, in doing that, way off the corner, was able to get back on line and continues his pursuit of Danny Sullivan.
Yeah, Emerson may be 46, but his reflexes are really good. I was talking to him in the pits. He gave me a wave from his motor scooter, and as we were making eye contact, another motor scooter came shooting out, and Emerson, without even looking over there, got his brakes on, and the guy shot by him. So that guy is a survivor.
So Paul Tracy, the leader of the race. Danny Sullivan now up to second. Fittipaldi back to third. Al Unser Jr. is fourth because of Johansson's moving out. And now here we have the leader of the race, Paul Tracy, coming down to the Penske pits, and Jack Arute.
And it will be tight quarters for Paul Tracy because the Gallus team is also waiting for their stops. Roger Penske puts the board out. The team goes to work in what is an organized ballet of changing Ford tires. In the meantime, Danny Sullivan and Al Unser Jr. are also getting service. Let's check in with Gary Gerald.
We've got both Sullivan and Unser in here now. Danny Sullivan has hit the 12-second mark off the jacks, rolling in 13.5 seconds. His teammate Unser right in front of it. The crew reacted here when they saw Fittipaldi's problem on the big screen. They were jubilant. They moved Sullivan up to second.
Paul Tracy got out ahead of Danny Sullivan. Teo Fabi came out as well. Let's go back to Jack.
And Gary, while that action was going underway, Paul Tracy had a minor miscue. As he tried to put the car back in gear, he couldn't find the proper gear, and he stumbled for a moment, almost stalled the car, but he was off and away, but it cost him valuable seconds.
You know, often, Paul, they just cram the things in the direction.
It looks like Teo Fabi off the edge of the course. It does not look like he caught either the tire barrier or the wall, though there are some hefty black marks leading up to the back of that car. Now, having assumed the lead of the race, here's Emerson Fittipaldi in for his stop, Jack.
Now, Fittipaldi, like his teammate, they're going to change Ford tires, take on fuel. This makes it a possibility for them to make it a two-stop race. Fittipaldi, after his little miscue, trying to gather it back up. That's one of the great things about Emerson. When they did a heart monitor on him as he completes a 14.1 second stop, they found that his heart rate under racing conditions went no higher, can you believe this, than 110.
Well, incredible fitness, Jack, of course, Emerson Fittipaldi. I've seen him undergo one of those stress tests where you bicycle for hours on end. The man is built of iron.
So Fittipaldi in and out with his stop, as is Paul Tracy, Danny Sullivan, Al Unser Jr., and Bobby Rahal. Teo Fabi came out of the pits very close to the leaders and then got up next to the wall. Now they have the IndyCar safety team there trying to get him restarted.
On Tracy's pit stop, I started mentioning a while ago, Paul, when they put him in gear, they just put him in a direction. What he did, the transmission gear shifts are so close together, he just chunked it into too high a gear.
Further update, Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, remember that the Penske chassis is utilizing what is called a sequential gearbox, similar to what you see on a motorcycle. So when you come down into the pits, some of the drivers have had a little bit of problem finding neutral because instead of a standard H pattern, it's 1 up and 5 down, and they have to search for it. That could have, we're not sure, but could have accounted for the slight miscue by Paul Tracy.
Although, interestingly, Jack, Paul Tracy spends his spare time on a motorcycle, so he's very familiar with the setup.
So with the pit stops, despite the miscue, Emerson Fittipaldi leads the race, now being chased by his teammate Paul Tracy. Mark Smith has had his problems. They had a little fire on this car. They've apparently gotten it out without any severe damage, and he will be able to return to the fight. There goes that ongoing battle for third place. Danny Sullivan, Al Unser Jr., and Bobby Rahal. But look what we have. Little Al and Danny Sullivan battling for position, and it's third place.
Yeah, you can see little Al's been slowly gaining on him. They were coming up behind the cart truck that you saw the lights on. You can't pass right there. But little Al is one that's obviously made some changes or whatever during the pit stop. He's on the move now, Paul.
Anyone familiar with the pattern that little Al runs in races always knows that it's about this point in the race that we start to see him challenging for the leading position. Why does he not qualify better? Why don't we see him from the start? Here's, of course, Teo Fabi making a quick stop.
Let's go to the pits and Gary.
Well, Paul Teo, they believe that one of the Penske cars pinched him and he got up against the tire barrier. They've assessed that there's no damage. They've just changed the tires, fueled him. He's now back on course, but he lost a considerable amount of time.
Here's that situation. Let's take a look at it. The Penske car in question would have been Paul Tracy. They went into the corner side by side. Tracy was doing everything he could to stay over and off the line. But coming off the corner, yes, he did lead him out toward the wall, wouldn't you say, Bobby?
Yes, he certainly did. Tracy would be a little bit at fault there, in my opinion, because he just kind of moved over, didn't leave Fabi any place to go, and Fabi was up right alongside of him going into the turn.
The first pit stops are now complete. 42 laps, the distance traveled thus far of the 103-lap scheduled distance, and Emerson Fittipaldi leads. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations.
The Molson Indy Toronto is brought to you by your local Yamaha dealer, who invite you to see their exciting line of motorcycles, ATVs, and water vehicles. By Mobile Link Cellular Service, it's simply the way to communicate. By Armor All, there is a fountain of youth, and we own the patent. And by AC Delco Automotive Parts. AC Delco, it's like buying time.
We're back at the Molson Indy Toronto, 47 laps, the 103-lap scheduled distance complete. Emerson Fittipaldi leads. The early leader of the race, Paul Tracy, is running in second right now. We are under a full course yellow with Danny Sullivan in third, Al Unser Jr. in fourth, Bobby Rahal is fifth, and Scott Goodyear in sixth, but they are now all bunched up once again. There was a problem on board Arie Luyendyk's car, and in fact he still sits in the pits, and Gary Gerould is there.
Paul, unusual situation. After he'd made his early pit stop filled up with fuel, he went out on the course, the fuel alarm sounded, and the engine just totally shut down. They think it's an electronic gremlin of some type. Also need to update the Nigel Mansell situation. He's been complaining that he is losing boost. He's been saddled back there between 9th and 12th. He's had handling problems. He's also had a problem with the shift linkage going from second to third gear. This has not been a good day thus far for Mansell. Let's go to Jack.
Well, Gary, it's interesting that Stefan Johansson had an engine quit as well. You don't know what was wrong, but what about the drive until then?
I was running real good. I was just really pacing, you know, taking it real easy, running on the minimum fuel, short shifting everywhere, just trying to stay in touch, you know, to monitor what the other guys were doing on the, you know, on their pit stops, and it was running good. The car was perfect. You know, I wanted to attack in the last two stints.
Well, he's not going to get to do that, but some others will as they drop the green, Paul.
Green out again. First four cars are running together on the race course. Fittipaldi, Tracy Sullivan, Al Unser Jr. Then a break. That's Gauchot in the car normally assigned to Lynn St. James. Gauchot in the car this week, his first IndyCar race. Bobby Rahal sitting back trying to get in contact with Al Unser Jr. He runs in fifth.
Now keep in mind, early in the race, Tracy was the fastest. Right now, Emo's leading like he did early in the race again, right at the start. Danny Sullivan, the guy's been moving up pretty fast, though, is right behind the two Penske cars there.
And, of course, right behind Sullivan, right in his mirrors, is little Al, the man who tangled. Sullivan and little Al tangled last week in Cleveland. And as I started to say before, little Al generally starts cautiously at the beginning of these races and comes along slowly because during practice and qualifying, he emphasizes looking for a setup that will be good in the race. But does not put the big emphasis on qualifying.
Fastest car thus far in the race remains Fittipaldi. 107.6 miles an hour, turned on lap 22. We are now running on the 50th lap of the run. Rahal finally got his way around Gauchot. And now the rest of the field have the same problem to contend with as Rahal in fifth place closes in on Al Unser Jr. The leaders still right together on the race course and pushing Fittipaldi hard.
Right now, the situation could not be better for Team Penske. Emerson Fittipaldi in the lead, piling up points, and of course, Mansell mired back in the 9th and 10th positions and in trouble.
And also keep in mind, Sam and Paul, that the tires are more than halfway through this segment of fuel run before they make another pit stop, which should come around lap 77. Hard to tell for sure because of the yellows. But the tires are definitely getting worn a little bit right now.
The battle for 6th place. The number 2 Mackenzie car is Scott Goodyear, who was in 6th, but surprisingly peels off and heads into the pits, giving 6th away to Robbie Gordon in his battle with RAUL BOESEL. Jack Arute.
Well, this was definitely an unscheduled pit stop because I just spoke to Derrick Walker, the team owner, and he said the problem that they were having is the car operated better on full tanks than on low tanks, so they were going to try to keep the car as full as possible. He did not want to bring the car in now, but he was going to bring it early and out of sequence.
So at 10.9 seconds.
Jack, a bitter disappointment for this team to drop out of contention because they had the fastest warm-up lap this morning, getting headlines really for the first time since their pole position back in Phoenix. They've had a real rocky year. The sponsor apparently going away. Scott Goodyear's future a little bit in question at the moment.
Well, Sam, they still have McKenzie on for this year, and that'll go to the end of the year, but for sure McKenzie told them they won't be on with them next year. But right now, they normally have a good car. It's a 93 Lola with Ford power. That's about as good as you can get, but you're right. They certainly haven't had the car working really good this year.
And you know, Bobby, Scott Goodyear's Lola, like other Lolas in this series, have proven very, very tough to set up just right. I talked to Kevin Kogan this morning, and he spoke of how delicate it is to get one of these cars set up. And the reason, of course, Mansell has a Lola, and I think the reason that the Penske cars are coming on mid-season is that they are good from track to track. It doesn't matter where they go, they come off the trailer fast. And as Roger himself pointed out, that's what leads you to a championship.
Well, that untimely pit stop caused Goodyear to fall out of the top 10. He now runs in 11th place, so he lost 5 positions when he darted in and out of the pits.
Yeah, and as you said, Paul, it's an untimely pit stop, so the folks follow the race, they want to remember, he's stopping in odd laps. He's out of sequence with the other guys, which may mean he has to make an extra stop.
Back at the front, the fight continues. The 3-way battle between Fittipaldi, Tracy, and Sullivan, with Alan Jr. running in 4th place.
Fittipaldi.
Well, look at the brakes light up on those Fittipaldi brakes.
He won here in 1987, but not since then.
You know, the thing about the Lolas, there's the 2 Penskes, the red and white ones out in front, with the Lola, Danny Sullivan right behind a new Lola. And the thing about the Lolas, as Sam was starting to mention, they don't seem to be handled good at every track. They're pitch sensitive or angle sensitive. Whenever the angle of the race car in any direction changes, the cars don't keep their adhesion to the ground. Nobody so far has been able to whip this problem, but they're all trying.
That's at the same time, though, Bobby Unser, that the Penske cars are really getting the power down well here in the midseason. In fact, so well that a lot of people are muttering the word traction control on the Penske car, and muttering it so loud that the officials a week ago asked them to disconnect some of their wheel sensors and do the same thing again this weekend.
Yeah, but Penske doesn't cheat, number one. What you mean by power down, so everybody knows, is just more traction. The rear wheel's not spinning as much. And what Penske used to have was a traction control device which cut out a cylinder or 2 whenever the wheels start.